Hello everyone. Welcome to the Heartbreaker channel. That Saturday afternoon, the sun bathed the day in a golden glow, promising a break from the gray routine of study days. Olivia, with her freshly turned 16 years, felt a mix of anxiety and excitement as she walked towards the building where her best friend, Emily, was celebrating her birthday. She adjusted the floral dress she had chosen especially for the occasion, a piece that made her feel more grown-up, closer to that mysterious phase of moving from adolescence to adulthood. The party room of the building exuded joy, decorated with colorful balloons and tables full of treats that would make any diet be forgotten. The music, a collection of hits that pleased both the young and the adults, created an atmosphere of pure happiness. It was then that she saw him. Paul, Emily's neighbor, was just a year older, but to Olivia's eyes, he seemed to belong to another universe. Perhaps it was the way he moved with a confidence she still sought, or perhaps it was the easy smile he shared with everyone around, lighting up the space more than the vibrant decoration of the room. He tried to approach her a few times, with one pretext or another, but shyness made her recoil, watching him from afar, while curiosity and a new sensation, which she still couldn't name, grew within her. As the afternoon turned into evening, the party transformed. What was once a lively gathering of friends became a minefield of new and unknown emotions for Olivia. She watched Paul interact with others, noticing how the light of the environment played in his dark hair, how his laughter seemed like music she wanted to learn to play. In her heart, seeds of a future emotion were planted, rooting in dreams that would accompany her far beyond that night. In the midst of the celebration, a moment of silent connection occurred. Their eyes met, and in that instant, everything else seemed to disappear. It was a brief but intense look. Olivia felt her heart beat in a new way, a prelude to what was to come. And although they barely exchanged words, an invisible bond began to form between them, as real and meaningful as the friendship that united her with Emily. When the party came to an end, and the last guests began to say goodbye, Olivia felt a strange reluctance to leave that place. The first encounter with Paul, though marked by few words, had left a lasting impression. She knew, in some inexplicable way, that that day would be a point of reference in her life, a marker of the passage from adolescence to something deeper and more complex. As she left the hall, she cast one last glance over her shoulder, capturing the image of Paul talking animatedly with Emily. As the seasons changed, painting the sky in new colors and bringing the freshness of new breezes, Olivia's life also transformed, but in a less poetic and much more demanding way. The proximity of the entrance exam erected invisible walls between her and the world around her, including Paul and Emily. The afternoons once dedicated to casual meetings and endless conversations gave way to a strict study regime, a solitary immersion in books and notes that promised a bright future, but at an increasingly tangible cost. Olivia's room, once full of dreams and plans sketched in the margins of notebooks, transformed into a battleground against time and against herself. Piles of textbooks and manuals formed a barren landscape on the desk, while the calendar on the wall counted the days like a doomsday clock, each marking bringing her closer to the exam that would decide her fate. In her moments of pause, looking out the window at the world outside, Olivia felt a mix of determination and despair. The pressure from her parents was a constant, a shadow that followed her smallest attempts at relaxation. "You need to get into a public university," echoed her father's words, mixing with the oppressive silence that settled over the house on weekends, when the world seemed to recede, leaving her alone with her thoughts and doubts. The emotional and physical distance from Paul and Emily became a reflection of the distance she felt from herself. Memories of shared moments were now ghosts visiting her solitude, bringing a mix of nostalgia and pain. The memory of Paul's smile, the way her heart beat stronger near him, everything seemed to belong to a past life, a dream from which she had been abruptly awakened. Casual encounters, when they happened, were marked by superficial conversations, where the true words remained choked, lost between what was said and what really mattered. "I'm focused on my studies," she would say, trying to justify the distance. Emily tried to understand, but the distance between them had grown so much that it seemed insurmountable, a chasm opened by the choices and circumstances of life. And then came the first failure. The news that she had not secured the desired spot at the public university was a devastating blow, not just to her own hopes, but also to her parents' expectations. The pressure intensified, becoming an almost tangible force weighing on her shoulders, day after day. In the second year of attempts, the proximity of success only exacerbated the feeling of defeat when she once again found herself outside the list of approved candidates. Her parents' restrictions became stricter, every aspect of her life controlled with the sole aim of ensuring the success that had hitherto eluded her. The Olivia who laughed and dreamed seemed increasingly distant, replaced by a version of herself she barely recognized, a shadow consumed by the pursuit of a goal that always seemed out of reach. The third year brought with it a radical change, not just in Olivia's life but also in the family dynamics. Admission to college, though delayed, was an oasis in the desert of her recent experiences, a sign that perhaps, just maybe, all the sacrifice had been worth it. At that moment, as she crossed the invisible line separating failure from success, Olivia felt a mix of relief and apprehension. Joy for the achievement, but a deep sadness for what had been lost in the process. The connection with the people she loved, the simplicity of worry-free days, the version of herself that smiled more easily. The university was a universe apart, a galaxy of possibilities and new beginnings, where Olivia, now free from the chains binding her to the past, could finally breathe. The classrooms, full of new faces and vibrant ideas, were portals to worlds she longed to explore. And it was in this setting of renewal that fate, in its intricate plot, prepared the stage for a reunion that would redefine the course of her life. The university environment, with its wide green areas, groups of students immersed in conversations and laughter, was a novelty in her life. Olivia felt part of something larger, a pulsating community of dreams and aspirations. It was on one of these sunny afternoons, as she headed to the place where students gathered to celebrate a colleague's birthday, that she saw him. Paul was there, so familiar and yet so different. The years had given him a maturity that reflected in his gaze, his posture, the way he smiled. He was more handsome, if that was possible, and the mutual recognition was immediate. Olivia's surprise quickly turned into joy, a flame rekindled by long-forgotten winds. "I can't believe it, Olivia. It's been so long. How are you?" Paul's voice was a familiar melody, a remembrance of simpler times. She could barely contain the whirlwind of emotions his presence evoked. "I'm great, and you?" She tried to maintain her composure, but her heart beat at a frenetic pace, betrayed by the intensity of her gaze. The conversation flowed with the ease of those who share not just a past but a set of memories that deeply intertwined them. They discovered that, despite the years of distance, the connection they had felt at Emily's birthday party remained intact, perhaps even strengthened by the experiences they had lived separately. They danced, laughed, and the night stretched out like a carpet under their feet, each moment etching itself in their memories with the clarity of a photograph. When the party came to an end and Paul offered a ride, Olivia knew she was on the brink of something monumental. The first kiss. In the following months, the relationship flourished, taking root in fertile ground. Meetings became routine, each more meaningful than the last. Olivia and Paul shared not just affections but dreams, future projects, visions of a world they wished to build together. Olivia's family, witnessing this transformation, welcomed Paul with warmth and approval, recognizing in him not just Olivia's love but a precious member added to their story. Then, on an evening painted in shades of gold and pink, Paul surprised her. The setting was a tranquil park, where nature wove its enchantment around them. Kneeling, he presented not just a ring, but an invitation to a shared life. "Will you marry me, Olivia?" Olivia, overwhelmed by unprecedented happiness, could only nod affirmatively, tears in her eyes reflecting the twilight's light. It was a yes not just to Paul, but to the life they dreamed of building together. The night that followed was a celebration. Olivia and Paul, now fiancés, looked towards the future with hope and determination, aware of the challenges but strengthened by the love that united them. They were ready to start the journey of building a life together, one step at a time, with their hearts open to whatever destiny had in store. As the big day approached, Olivia's world, once painted in vibrant colors of joy and anticipation, began to assume darker tones, tinged with the restlessness and doubts that stealthily infiltrated her heart. The wedding preparations, which should have been a celebration of the love she and Paul shared, turned into sources of stress and anxiety, revealing cracks in the foundation of their relationship that Olivia had never imagined existed. The apartment they shared, once a nest of love and mutual understanding, now seemed to house a stranger, a Paul she barely recognized. The long hours of work he claimed were necessary to cover the wedding expenses left him absent not just physically, but emotionally. He returned late at night, exhausted, a ghost of the vibrant and passionate man who had asked for her hand in marriage. On a particularly cold night, when the moon shone with melancholic splendor in the cloudless sky, Olivia found herself alone in her living room, surrounded by unmailed wedding invitations and fabric samples for the dress she had yet to decide on. Loneliness was a heavy companion, her questions echoing unanswered in the silent walls of the apartment. "What's happening to us?" she wondered, a solitary tear tracing a cold path down her cheek. The communication between them, once fluid and filled with laughter, had become an exercise in juggling and evasion. Olivia's attempts to discuss her feelings and concerns were met with hurried excuses or vague promises that everything would be all right. "I'm just tired, Olivia. All this will pass after the wedding," Paul would say, his voice a whisper of insufficient comfort that failed to calm the turmoil in her heart. The weight of expectations was a heavy burden on Olivia's shoulders. She feared not only for the future of their relationship but also for the possibility of marrying a version of Paul she no longer recognized. The uncertainty about what marriage would bring, coupled with the fear of the unknown, formed a shadow that threatened to swallow the light of their love. It was during a visit to Paul's parents, an attempt to find some normalcy amidst the chaos, that Olivia realized the extent of her alienation. The warm and welcoming smile of her future mother-in-law could not hide the worried look exchanged with her husband, as if they shared a dark secret about their son that Olivia had yet to discover. These moments, brief and loaded with unspoken significance, added layers of complication to an already difficult situation to navigate. In search of answers, Olivia turned inward, reflecting on the changes that had permeated her relationship with Paul. The doubts were like thorns in her mind, each thought a reminder of the promises made and the shared dreams that now seemed so distant. The shadow of doubt was a constant presence, a fog that obscured the clear vision of the future she so dearly wished for. Faced with the possibility of a growing chasm between her and Paul, Olivia found herself at a crossroads of emotions and decisions. Prenuptial anxiety mixed with the fear of making the wrong decision, of committing to a life that might not be the one she had dreamed of. The love she felt for Paul, though unwavering, was now accompanied by a sense of uncertainty, a silent questioning of whether love would be enough to overcome the shadows threatening their future together. Olivia and Paul's wedding day dawned sunny, a promising omen that seemed to dispel all the shadows of doubt that had clouded Olivia's heart in the preceding weeks. The cloudless blue sky stretched like a protective cloak over the most awaited day of their lives. The gentle breeze caressing her face as she prepared was nature's whisper, reaffirming that, despite everything, love would find a way. Dressed in white, Olivia was the very personification of a dream cherished since childhood. Her dress, chosen after countless fittings and doubts, flowed around her body like water, capturing the day's light with every movement. Looking at herself in the mirror, accompanied by her mother's silent tears and her father's proud smile, she allowed herself to believe that perhaps the internal storms she had faced were just preludes to this moment of pure splendor. The ceremony was a blur of emotions, each glance exchanged with Paul an anchor bringing her back to the present, each vow a promise of better days. The love shining in his eyes was a beacon, momentarily dispelling the uncertainties that plagued her. Family and friends gathered shared in this dream. However, the perfection of the day was just a pause in the storm to come. The honeymoon, envisioned as a paradisiacal retreat where love would be reaffirmed away from the pressures of the outside world, quickly revealed itself as the setting for painful confrontations and revelations that threatened the very foundation of their relationship. The chosen destination, a tropical island of stunning beauty, was both a refuge and a prison, surrounded by turquoise waters that reflected both peace and the unfathomable depth of unspoken secrets. In the first days, the charm of the place and each other's company were enough to keep at bay the ghosts stirring in the shadows of their minds. However, the harmony was broken when an unexpected message arrived on Paul's cell phone, a fleeting glimpse Olivia had while he was taking a shower. The simple phrase, "Aren't you going to answer?" was the exposed wire that threatened to ignite the veil of happiness enveloping them. The confrontation that followed was stormy. Each word from Olivia was laden with veiled accusations, each response from Paul a failed attempt to calm the rising waves between them. The love they had sworn to each other seemed fragile in the face of the distrust and fear that were taking hold. The storm reached its peak during a dinner that should have been romantic but turned into a battlefield. The words exchanged, sharp as blades, left marks that no tide could erase. Paul decided to take a walk to clear his head, and Olivia's return to the hotel room was met with deafening silence. Then the worst happened. The news of the accident that took Paul's life hit her like a sudden storm, ripping her from the solid ground of existence and casting her into a vortex of despair and denial. The following hours were a blur of distant voices, faces blurred by the mist of her tears, and the sensation of falling into an endless abyss. The hospital, with its sterile corridors and cold lights, became the setting of her torment, a labyrinth of hallways that seemed to lead her deeper into darkness. The wait for confirmation of what her heart already knew was torturous. When the final verdict finally arrived, through the carefully chosen words of a doctor who was a stranger to her, Olivia felt the last thread of hope unravel. Paul was dead, and with him, a part of her also extinguished. Returning home was like entering a sanctuary empty of memories, every corner a cruel reminder of the life they had planned together. The interrupted honeymoon, the dreams of a shared future, everything had been violently ripped from her hands. And in the midst of this storm of loss and suffering, a new storm was forming on the horizon, laden with hidden truths that threatened to shatter what remained of her world. The revelation of Paul's betrayal came as a low blow, a stab that tore through the curtain of mourning to reveal an even darker scene. Through messages and unanswered calls, Olivia discovered the unspeakable. Paul had been unfaithful, and his mistress was pregnant. And this woman was Isabella, the sister of her friend Emily. The shock of this discovery, amid the whirlwind of emotions already consuming her, was enough to make her question the reality of everything they had lived together. Questions multiplied in her mind like an infestation. How could he? Why? Was there anything real in their love, or was it all just a skillfully orchestrated farce? Paul's betrayal was not just a breach of trust, it was an annihilation of everything she believed she knew about the man she loved. Faced with the reality that her husband had a secret life, Olivia found herself at the edge of the abyss of her own identity. The pain of loss mixed with the bitterness of betrayal, forming a cauldron of emotions that consumed her from within. She felt betrayed not just by Paul, but by fate, which had torn away her chance to confront him, to seek answers, to understand. In this landscape of desolation, Paul's family, who had once welcomed her as one of their own, became a mirror of the duplicity she now perceived in her late husband. The condolence visits turned into encounters charged with tension, where unspoken words weighed more than those spoken. Lost in this sea of sadness, Olivia clung to the wreckage of her broken heart, desperately trying to find meaning amidst the chaos. In the heart of the desolation that had befallen Olivia, a sign of unexpected life began to sprout, bringing with it a mix of fears and hopes. The discovery of her pregnancy emerged as a ray of light through the dark clouds of her sadness, an unexpected gift that carried within it the promise of new life and, perhaps, a new reason to move forward. The first months were marked by an intense internal battle, where each wave of morning nausea brought with it a whirlwind of emotions. The idea of bringing Paul's child into the world, of sharing with this being an eternal connection with the man she had loved and lost, was simultaneously a source of indescribable joy and acute pain. Olivia found herself navigating a stormy sea of grief and expectation, each gentle movement within her a constant reminder of the love that had blossomed and lost in the shadows of betrayal. However, the arrival of Raisa was the dawn of a new era in Olivia's life. Her daughter's first cry broke the last barrier of shadow still enveloping her heart, illuminating every dark corner with a pure and renewing light. Raisa was a miracle, a symbol of resilience and renewal, an anchor that kept Olivia firmly attached to life, to the future. The responsibility of raising a new life, combined with the unconditional love she felt for her daughter, provided Olivia with the strength needed to begin weaving the threads of her new existence. Although the scars of the past remained, they began to resemble less open wounds and more marks of a battle from which she had emerged stronger. It was during this period of rebirth and healing that Rui entered her life, initially as a friend, someone who offered support without demanding anything in return. He was the balm for wounds Olivia believed were incurable, showing through small gestures and words of encouragement that love, despite everything, could bloom again in a heart she thought was permanently closed to such a feeling. The relationship between Olivia and Rui grew slowly, rooted in mutual respect and admiration, until it blossomed into genuine love, a feeling that seemed distilled from all the hard-learned lessons. With Rue, Olivia discovered a new way to love, more mature and aware, a love built not on the idealizations of youth, but on the full acceptance of each other's imperfections and scars. The decision to marry again, this time with Rue, was not made lightly. Olivia saw him as a life partner, someone with whom she could share the joys and challenges of raising Raissa and, eventually, the children they might have together. This new marriage symbolized not just the union of two people, but the celebration of a life rebuilt from the ashes of the past, an affirmation of faith in love and the possibility of new beginnings. Olivia, now surrounded by the love of Rue, Raissa, and the children that followed, found a peace she had long thought unattainable. Each day alongside her new family was a reminder that, even in the most painful circumstances, life can offer new paths, new joys. The pain of loss and betrayal, though never completely forgotten, transformed into a closed chapter of her story, a necessary prelude to the happy days she now lived. Forgiving Paul and herself was not an easy task. It required her to dive deep into the depths of her soul, confronting the shadows that resided there. The relationship with Paul's family, though initially marked by tensions and unspoken grievances, evolved over time. On a tranquil afternoon, Olivia sat in the garden of her home, watching Raissa and Paul Jr., Isabella's son, play under the shade of an old mango tree. Looking into Raissa's eyes, she saw not just the reflection of her love for Paul, but also the promise of a new beginning. Seeing Raissa and Paul Jr. grow up together, sharing bonds of affection that transcended the complexity of their connection, was to witness the power of forgiveness and human resilience. Olivia found, in that relationship, confirmation that love, in its various forms, is capable of healing the deepest wounds. Rue, her companion on this journey of healing and discovery, was the anchor that kept her steady when the waters of life became turbulent. The love they shared was a beacon of hope, a testament to the fact that, even in the darkest moments, light can find a way to shine again. With him, Olivia built a new family, a safe harbor where everyone, united by the bonds of love and choice, could find peace.